That's what I'm talking about. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Fantasy Life with me, the Big AC, on 401 Crew 1 on DraftKings, the Fantasy Life with AC on YouTube, the Fantasy Life with AC on Facebook, and at Trivia with AC on Twitter. How did last week go? It was fantastic. We finally got that big score we've been waiting for all year long. We're going to talk about that lineup. We're going to talk about another lineup in the same contest that also did really well. We're going to talk about, of course, our target leaders each and every week, players we're going to be using in our lineups this week, my four aces, my four favorite plays of the week, and also we're going to be going over that bargain bin every single week, players under 5K and how important that is to fill out your roster. And we're going to do something new this week too. We're going to go over roster construction, particularly game stacks. I get a lot of questions about how I particularly form my game stacks. Why do I go after certain games, things like that. And I'm going to show you exactly an example of some of my lineups that I'm going to be using this week. So let's hop right into it. Also, my question of the week for you guys out there is, what's your favorite DST of this week, regardless of the price, that isn't the Pittsburgh Steelers? Of course, the Pittsburgh Steelers facing Dallas would be the best. But if price did not matter, besides the Steelers, what's your favorite DST of the week in daily fantasy? Write it in the chat, either on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Curious to see your answers. All right, let's go over our lineup last week. Like I said, we finally had that big hit. We hit for 5K last week. Was super pumped, as you can imagine, and had the super rare no sweat. Like, we pretty much didn't really have anything to worry about. We had DJ Dallas in it as our only member of the 4 o'clock game, so even if he scored 0 points, we would have won. But let's check out that lineup. This was our 5K hit right over here. Again, this is the $50 chop block tournament that I play every week. About roughly 800 entrants, 170 entrants get paid. And for this lineup, we attacked the Chiefs. That was clearly my focus. Braxton Berrios and Denzel Mims were on my cheap list of receivers, and I figured game script would kind of favor them. They obviously weren't the ones to win my slates, but clearly attacking the Chiefs was the way to go. And I even said in the previous video, why are we not using the best quarterback in the world against the worst team in football right now? I used that mindset, constructed this roster. Here we go. We used Derrick Henry, who was one of my favorite plays of the week. The model of consistency, Travis Kelce, of course, not letting us down. And really the key to this, too, was the Dolphins DST. Again, we're going to talk about defense a little bit later on, too. But Dolphins were on the list of the cheapest defenses that were home that didn't have a really difficult, super tough matchup. Like, they weren't facing the Chiefs. They weren't facing Seattle. And that's why I chose the Dolphins. And that's kind of been a formula I've been using all year long. So again, you can kind of see how I picked 5 players from that Kansas City and Jets game. And that's really what kind of led to the victory. Was super pumped, as you can see, over it was 30 points more than the next guy. So it was wasn't exactly sweating it out. The wins are always fantastic, of course. But I do want to go over one that wasn't a win, and here's a good example of one. This is the same contest, that chop block $50 tournament. We got 30th place in this one, winning $200. But again, Dolphins DST, we clearly focused on the San Francisco-Seattle game. We used Kittle, we used Ayuk, we used Russell Wilson, DJ Dallas, DK Metcalf had a monster game. But notice, we scored 4 points from Jonnu, 5 points from Kittle. Still got a monster cash. 4 points from Deontay Harris, one of my bargain bin guys. Still got a big cash. Didn't have Dalvin in this lineup. And that's kind of what I wanted to touch on too, is you don't need to hit bingo to really get a significant cash. And I think 4xing your investment is a significant cash. So that's another huge reason why I suggest playing bigger buy-in tournaments, because it's much easier to get a cash like this than it would be, say, like the $3 100,000 entrant type tournament. Would much rather take 10 of those entries and turn it into one of the one of these, or 20 of those entries into one of these. You're significantly more likely to have a significant cash. But yeah, so the focus on this one was that Seattle-San Fran game. Thought it was a high point spread game with a it was a high point total game with a small spread, meaning it was going to be a highly competitive back and forth game. And the score didn't really dictate it, but Seattle was really blowing out San Fran. Lucky touchdown at the very end by Ayuk. But yeah, that was kind of the format. I attacked that Seattle-San Fran game and got the 4x cash, got 30th place. Very, very good week. Now, on to business. How can we help you guys and gals win this week? So let's go over the target leaders for going into this week. Again, why do we go over targets? Targets equal opportunities. Opportunities equal points. Top of the list, Stephon Diggs leading the way with 79 targets. And who does he have this week? That's right, the Seattle Seahawks. He will obviously be in our lineups this week. Allen Robinson under that with Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper still getting targets despite really not putting up fantasy numbers. Keenan Allen, man, I talk this guy up every single week. This guy just gets it done. He is the first, second, and third look for Justin Herbert. DeAndre Hopkins, Cooper Kupp on there, Terry McFly, the model of consistency. Travis Kelce, we're going to talk about him a little bit later and just how important he is going to be for daily fantasy going forward. Calvin Ridley, in a losing effort, got a lot of targets, a lot of work these previous weeks, but he did get hurt last game, so he's not going to be on our radar this week. Tyler Boyd on bye, but we do love him. Bobby A, my guy, 67 targets, middle of the pack right now when it comes to the top 10 leaders. Kamara, the highest ranked running back right there with the most targets. Tyler Lockett, AJ Green, again, 2 Bengals on that. Bengals are going to be behind pretty much every game, so that does not surprise me. Darren Waller, second tight end on this list. CeeDee Lamb, DK Metcalf, a.k.a. Optimus Prime, and DJ Moore rounding out the target leaders for this week. Again, if we like a game and we see a game that we want to attack and they are on the target leaderboard, chances are we're probably going to use them. All right, so we know our target leaders. Let's go over my 4 aces of the week. Again, these are guys that are going to be in the majority of my lineups each and every week. These are guys that I fully expect to get a 3x return, meaning they're going to get 3 times the points of what their salary is. If they're an $8,000 player, I'm expecting them to get at least 24,000 points, 24 points or more back. So let's get rolling. Here is my first guy that I like this week. We're going to go at the running back position, Dalvin Cook versus Detroit. Dalvin coming off that monstrous game. He has a big price tag this week, $82,000. He was only 7% owned last week in my tournaments. That number will be higher this week. However, I think Vikings are going to handle Detroit. Matt Stafford might not play in this game. Really like Detroit defense. We'll talk more about that later. But yeah, Dalvin Cook will be in line for a steady workload. Fully expect him to both get it done on the ground and the receiving game. That's why we love Dalvin Cook. Next on this list, maybe my favorite play of the week, wide receiver Jerry Jeudy versus Atlanta. Attacking Atlanta has not done us wrong yet. So I fully expect Jerry Jeudy to get a lot of work. Love the price tag of $4,700. Drew Lock kind of seems to be falling in his rhythm. He's getting his swag. You know, he's doing the dances when he scores. So I expect Jerry Jeudy to get a lot of work, regardless of where he lines up. I know in college he was primarily a slot receiver, then they moved him outside. But again, wherever Jerry Jeudy lines up, I'm pretty sure he's just going to destroy the Atlanta secondary. And again, that's been a formula we've used all year long. Next on this list, the model of consistency. And this is really what I wanted to talk about this show. Travis Kelce, $7,200. He's going to have a price tag like that all year long. With Kittle going out and probably being out for the rest of the year, Travis Kelce is going to be a top 3 tight end at worst every single week that he plays. Plain and simple. He's the model of consistency. He gets it done every week. And this isn't going to be astute research or knowledge by me, because I'm pretty sure all of you know this too. It's pretty much a cheat code every week to use Travis Kelce. He is going to be leaps and bounds better than the next guy you pick for your lineups. I understand defense, tight end, it's very easy to kind of punt, go, pay the lowest price for and figure out the rest of your roster. I get that. That's even more of a reason why I like Travis Kelce, because the field won't use him nearly as much as he should. And he is simply a check mark each and every week at the position. If you can win your week, every week at tight end, wow, you are putting yourself in a great scenario. And I just showed you the winning lineup with Patty Mayo and Travis Kelce. It's not like paying up for tight end doesn't work. We know it works. And this wasn't just a one-time thing. We've seen it work many times this year. So Travis Kelce, he's a check mark every week. Do not be surprised if he's in my next week video, or as long as the Chiefs are playing. He just is going to get it done every single week. Again, winning the position at tight end every week is just such a monstrous advantage. So we paid money for Dalvin. We paid money for Travis Kelce. We're going to have to save some money here. I went with a defense right here. I went Vikings. Again, my formula is I like using a home defense of all the cheapest DSTs that are facing someone that I personally do not think is a ridiculously tough matchup. A Matt Stafford-less Detroit Lions. Presumably Matt Stafford-less Detroit Lions qualifies as a team that isn't exactly a threat to me. Also no Kenny Golladay either. So yeah, the Vikings, $2,400 at home versus Detroit. That makes the cut for me. If Matt Stafford does play and you want to pivot to, say, Atlanta, I know I'm talking about Jerry Jeudy versus Atlanta there. I'm okay with that. Again, the reason why I just like paying down for defense, it's so random, the outcomes when it comes to defense. Yeah, the Steelers are in a smash lineup. They're almost $5,000. You're going to need at least one defensive or special team score for that to work out, to pay that much money. Should it happen? Probably. But again, if they hold them to 3 points and get 5 sacks, that's 15 points. Is that really what you want out of your $5K defense? We're getting 20s out of Miami every other week. So again, Vikings DST at home, the position is so random. I just prefer to pay down when it comes to defense. Our total salary with all 4 of these is $22,500. This gives you tons of room to really game stack the particular games that you like each and every week. From there, let's talk about quarterbacks that I do want to target. So all 5 of these quarterbacks are quarterbacks that I'm going to be using in my game stacks this week. A game stack is using a quarterback with at least one of their running backs, receivers, tight ends, and usually, almost always, a piece of offense on the opposite side. Almost always. Let's see what we have here. So let's go quarterbacks. Again, this is just based on salary. This isn't necessarily based on who I like the most. Patty Mayo versus Carolina. Carolina is a very, very bad defense. So, like Patty Mayo right there for the top dollar price. Underneath that is a guy who just hasn't let us down once all year long, and that's Deshaun Watson for that $7,100. His game stacks each and every week are usually pretty inexpensive too. For whatever reason, Will Fuller and Brandon Cooks don't get that big boy price tag. So Deshaun Watson, one of our favorites right there. Josh Allen, we talked about Diggs. Of course, Josh Allen and Diggs are going to be in some of our lineups this week against that brutal Seattle secondary. Underneath that, we got Justin Herbert and the Chargers. Again, we love Keenan Allen, so we love Justin Herbert and vice versa. Doesn't look like there's really anyone else, too, that's consistently stepping it up. Mike Williams has had some big plays, but his price tag's always kind of high. Jalen Guyton is a guy we like. His price tag's low, but he doesn't get a lot of work. He's kind of like a tournament play. And Hunter Henry is just not leaping off the page for me. That being said, Justin Herbert, Keenan Allen, a lot of other pieces on the Raiders side that you can use as well. So Justin Herbert, going to be a guy I use this week. And my cheapo play of the week, Drew Lock. Like I said, I like Jerry Jeudy there. So Drew Lock, of course. Again, this is a stack. If you go with a Drew Lock, Jerry Jeudy stack, you're going to be able to really get some monsters at the running back and receiving position. So Drew Lock is someone I'm definitely going to be kind of mixing in to my lineups. Let's look at the running backs I'm going to be using in addition. CMC, he's back, baby, and I think people are going to avoid him. So if you want to go with a Mahomes, CMC, Travis Kelce stack, it's a lot of money. I know. It's gonna be very hard to make it happen. You're going to have to go cheapo receiver across the board. But I think this is going to be probably the lowest ownership we'll see of CMC going forward, short of an injury. There's going to be a lot of points in this game, obviously, in Kansas City, if the weather holds up. I just like CMC. A lot of people are going to be nervous about his workload, what he will do. I think he's more than ready to go. The guy's been working so hard to get back to this position. It's a big game against Kansas City. I just fully expect CMC to get a lot of work. And again, this is going to be the lowest owned he's going to be going forward unless he gets hurt again. Underneath that, I got James Robinson. This guy's kind of let us down a couple of times, but great matchup against Houston. Houston has let up a lot against running backs. We'll say this, James Robinson did not have that great of a game weeks ago. I believe it was week 3. But I'm willing to give him a shot again. If I'm using Deshaun Watson lineups, James Robinson, probably with the change of quarterback, is going to be the best offensive option on that team. So I expect James Robinson to have a pretty good game. If you're not feeling it, you're kind of snake bitten by James Robinson, I get it. He was just a guy that really leaped off the page for me based on matchup. And I think his price is somewhat reasonable. And he catches passes. Underneath that, James Conner. I do like him more than James Robinson, can't lie. James Conner might be my second or third favorite running back of the week against Dallas. Again, game script's just really playing into favor here for Pittsburgh. If you want to go with a James Conner, Pittsburgh Steelers stack, it's really rare that you do a running back defensive stack like that's your goal. But I think it makes sense. We're doing the same thing with Dalvin and the Vikings DST. So I think it makes sense to go James Conner, Pittsburgh DST stack as well. Oh yeah, Dallas is one of the absolute worst at defending against the rush. Underneath that, another guy I'm loving this week, Josh Jacobs against the Chargers. I think a lot of people are going to kind of forget about this guy, given that the Denver Broncos did not really run that much against the Chargers, where the previous game, James Robinson, another guy on our list, absolutely destroyed the Chargers. So Josh Jacobs is the offense there. He gets tons of touches, both on the ground and in the air. Love his price tag here, $6,300. Absolutely will be in our lineups. And last but not least for running backs, I got DJ Dallas. This is all depending on if Chris Carson does not play. He has not practiced yet. Friday, today, is a big one. If he doesn't practice today, Chris Carson ain't playing. Carlos Hyde ain't playing. Travis Homer hasn't practiced yet. So it could be the DJ Dallas show. Loved what I saw about him, too. If you watched that game, the kid was smiling. They got 1 point. Russ even hit his helmet. Dude, come on, calm down. I love this kid's energy. He's genuinely looking to take it to the house every time he gets the ball, and it's just I love what I saw out of DJ Dallas. I think he fits the Seattle offense really well, and frankly, any starting running back fits the Seattle offense really well. And you're going to get it for $5K. Feels like a smash button, just like last week for $4K. Let's look at our receivers. These are my favorite receivers of the week. Again, DK Metcalf, if we do attack that Buffalo game, which will be a popular game, going DK Metcalf and Stephon Diggs makes sense. Going Tyler Lockett and Stephon Diggs makes sense. We'll go over that a little bit later. But yeah, DK and Stephon Diggs absolutely are an amazing matchups right here. Julio Jones, if you want to attack this Denver game, going Drew Lock, Jerry Jeudy, and Julio Jones makes sense to me. Calvin Ridley, a little bit iffy to play. I don't know if that necessarily helps Julio. A lot of people just kind of assume Julio's going to get all of those targets. That's not how football works. If anything, Ridley going away might even hurt Julio a little bit. That being said, Julio's just an absolute monster when healthy, and it really does look like he's absolutely healthy. Underneath that, Keenan Allen, man, he still doesn't get that big boy price tag despite all those targets and all those catches. $7K, love him this week, pairing him with Herbert. Not much more you need to say. They're facing the Raiders. This is a very high point total game in Vegas, so in Las Vegas, not I don't mean the Raiders. I mean for all those gambling people out there. That's going to be a projected high scoring game. So Keenan Allen, fully expecting him to get a lot of work. Again, we talked about him earlier. Tyler Lockett, you want to go Lockett, Diggs, that makes sense. Unless you just completely give up on tight end, it's going to be really hard to go DK Metcalf, Lockett, and Diggs. I think that's going to be very tough this week. You're going to have to really pay down at tight end to make that work, but that is an option, and it would make sense based on your game stack. Other receivers that I like this week, we talked about Deshaun Watson. Again, you can kind of see what I mean about how the Houston stacks are always a little bit cheaper than other stacks, and Deshaun Watson hasn't let us down. So Will Fuller, Brandon Cooks, both reasonably priced this week. Love them going against Jacksonville. Very bad defensive team. Robbie Anderson. Again, if we're going with Patty Mayo and Travis Kelce, I like slipping in Robbie A. He's getting all the targets. Justin Jefferson. I don't love Kirk Cousins this week, but Detroit's secondary is very, very bad, and Justin Jefferson is always one play away from just taking it to the house. People might forget about him because he was on bye, so... and he wasn't really used last week as well. It was all the Dalvin show against the Packers. So, love me some Jefferson this week for 6,100. Underneath that, we got Cole Beasley comparing with Diggs. The guy just came off a very disappointing game, but prior to that, he was getting used and targeted heavily. So I do like Cole Beasley this week for 54. Going Diggs, Lockett, and Beasley. I think it is a Lockett week this week. Seems to be every other, but also based on the coverage that Buffalo plays, they play a little bit more man-to-man, and I think that benefits Lockett a little bit more. So going Diggs, Beasley, and Lockett, I think that's a great start. You're going to have to pay down other places as well, but I think that's a great start to your lineup. Let's go over other tight ends that I'm going to be using. Not tight ends. We're going to go over DSTs. Again, if you don't use the Vikings, these are the defenses that I would target this week. Top of the list, of course, Steelers. Not much analysis needed here, facing some random quarterback from Dallas. Yeah, that's, if I can't even remember the guy's name, that's a good sign. Washington football team against Danny Dimes, the turnover machine. Love them for 34. Chase Young's just an absolute animal. Expect to see Danny Dimes on his back all game long. Dolphins DST, they kind of get it done every single week. And again, I think they're going to be low owned this week against Arizona. People just kind of assume that Arizona is this offensive juggernaut. And yes, they're pretty good, but the Dolphins have held some better offensive teams to low points. Don't forget, they held Seattle. It's not a lot of points. You obviously just saw what they did against the Rams. I'm not comparing Seattle to the Rams by any means, but they've held some decent teams to low points. So Dolphins for 2,800. If you got the salary, you got $400 left. If you use the Vikings DST and you say I want to go Dolphins on the road in Arizona, I'm okay with it. I wouldn't talk you out of it. And then Falcons, we talked about them earlier. If you are not feeling the Vikings, you think I'm an idiot, you want to go Falcons, totally fine with that. I think that is a totally acceptable play. Low price, at-home defense for a very low price. All right, bargain bin. This is my favorite. This is where money's made. This is where you really find those gems each and every week. These are guys all under 5K that I like this week. Let's go over the receivers first. We got Ruggs for 4,900 against the Chargers and Nelson Aguilar, both on the same team facing the Chargers. Again, kind of shows you how inexpensive this game stack really is. If you want to go Herbert, Keenan Allen, Ruggs, and Aguilar, I think that's a pretty cheap price. And if you want to go, I like Aguilar a little bit more than Ruggs this week. You want to go Josh Jacobs, Keenan Allen, Nelson Aguilar. I think that makes sense to pair with Justin Herbert, and that's a pretty low. It doesn't really cost you a lot of money to make that happen. Randall Cobb, make sure you stay on top of his injury. He had an illness this week, so when you kind of don't practice all week, he is kind of a vet. He doesn't need to practice, but we want him to be 100%. So keep in mind of his injury tag. Make sure he's 100% healthy to go. Curtis Samuel against the Chiefs for 4,400. Again, that's strictly based on game stack. Curtis Samuel kind of gets used everywhere. I'm really liking his potential. With CMC coming back, I expect Curtis Samuel kind of get used a little bit less. But again, he is the slot guy. He gets used a decent amount, $4,400 against a high explosive team like the Kansas City Chiefs. Makes sense to me. Laviska Shenault, pretty much the only receiver I'm really interested in against Houston. Not really thinking DJ Chark. Keelan Cole, maybe. Laviska Shenault kind of gets used in a lot of ways, too. He gets used in the backfield. He gets targets. So 4,200 makes sense. He hasn't really had that explosive game yet, too, and Houston might be a great game for him to do that. Darnell Mooney versus the Titans this week, $3,900. Again, he's getting all those deep field looks. He was in our bargain bin last week. Did not let us down. Had a pretty good game based on his salary. So again, Darnell Mooney for $3,900 makes sense to me. Marvin Hall almost made my Four Aces segment right over here, $3,800. No Kenny Golladay, Marvin Hall. Fully expecting him to get the work. If you notice, I did not use Marvin Jones. I think that is a trap play when Marvin Jones is the lead guy. All he does is seem to let you down. Marvin Hall, the other Marvin, expect him to kind of get it done. I'm sure I'm going to get asked the question, wait, AC, you say you like the Minnesota defense, but you say start Marvin Hall? Well, yeah. I mean, look at Cooper Kupp last week against the Dolphins. Dolphins had a tremendous game. Cooper Kupp caught over 10 balls for over 100 yards. So it's not impossible and not even improbable for a receiver facing a defense that you like to also have a good game. So, yes, you can absolutely do that, especially when the price is cheap. Demarcus Robinson, $3,200 against Carolina. David Moore against Buffalo for 31, and Jalen Guyton for 31 against the Raiders. All three of these guys are the team's third wide receiver, if not their fourth wide receiver. They're pretty much all the team's third wide receiver. What I kind of come down to here is when you're on an explosive offensive team, I like paying for guys that are if I have $3,200 left, $3,300 left, and I need a guy. I like just choosing someone that has a high floor, potentially get a deep touchdown, and all these guys definitely qualify for that. The team's third receiver on a very good offense, so all three of these guys made my bargain bin. Running backs, these are hard to find. Startable running backs under 5K. We got DJ Dallas last week for 4K. We're not going to find that this week. J.K. Dobbins versus a very tough matchup against Indianapolis. J.K. Dobbins was in our bargain bin last week, and he did not let us down. Had a very good game. It's going to be a little bit tougher against the Colts this week. That being said, if you absolutely need a running back for under 5K, J.K. Dobbins can get it done. Again, on a very good offense, so with no Mark Ingram, expect J.K. to have a pretty solid game. Justin Jackson against the Raiders. Raiders let up a lot against the ground. Got a lot of work last week, too. Kind of went under the radar, Justin Jackson did. So like him for $4,900 against the Raiders. Kind of plays into your stack as well. You can go Justin Herbert and Justin Jackson with Keenan Allen. I think that makes sense. Devin Singletary against Seattle. He is kind of the pass-catching back. I got air quotes right there for Devin Singletary against Seattle. $4,700. If they do pass to their running backs, Devin Singletary will be the guy. Really don't like that Josh Allen takes all of his rushing touchdowns away. But yeah, Devin Singletary makes sense based on how the game should and could go. Wayne Gallman for $4,500 against Washington. Doesn't look like Freeman's going to play this week either. Tough matchup against Washington, but again, as we saw against the Bucs, whoever the starting running back is for the Giants does seem to get a lot of work. So I like Wayne Gallman. Tight ends this week, Eric Ebron versus Dallas for $4,500. He seems to be Ben's red zone guy. He's kind of getting used a lot. We've used him in weeks past as well. It just kind of makes sense. Rather than test him deep, I think he's going to go for sure easy first downs with Eric Ebron. So like his price tag for $45. Dalton Schultz in the in the same game on the opposite side, $3,600. He seems to be the check down Charlie tight end. So I like him for $36, and then Big Mac, Mo Alley-Cox for $3K. If you are absolutely desperate at the $3K price tag range, I like Big Mac this week for $3K. All right, so before we wrap up the show, I wanted to kind of go over roster construction and show you my top 3 games that I wanted to attack this week and kind of talk to you about my thought process through all 3. Let's start with my third favorite right here, and this is a Justin Herbert lineup. Again, I think the game stack is pretty inexpensive. I got James Conner. I got Herbert at quarterback with James Conner and DJ Dallas. Again, that is completely contingent on if Chris Carson does not play. Playing with Herbert, I got Keenan Allen, of course. Only guy you can really use there. Nelson Aguilar, I talked about earlier. I like him more than Henry Ruggs, so I have him in there. And I have Guyton as my cheap play at $3,100 at receiver. Model of consistency at tight end there, Travis Kelce. And then I got Josh Jacobs in the running back position. Again, based on game flow and how I see this game being played out, if this is a 30-27 type game, which it very well could be, we could potentially get all the touchdowns in this game. So we have 5 players invested in this game. That was the recipe we used last time. I just liked the way this lineup looked a lot. We have $600 left over of money. And like I said earlier, with the Vikings defense, if I want to turn that into Dolphins, I just might. So I'm going to take a look. I also might use that money to kind of turn DJ Dallas into someone else just in case Chris Carson does play. But again, this is kind of how I constructed my lineups, clearly focusing on the Chargers and Raiders game. Second option that I like this week that I'm going to be focusing on, as you probably guessed, that Seattle-Buffalo game, Josh Allen at the quarterback. Again, DJ Dallas, all contingent on if Chris Carson does not play. Josh Jacobs underneath that for $6,300. Diggs, Jerry Jeudy, and Lockett. Again, as you can see, we're really focusing on that game. Travis Kelce, and then my dart throw, David Moore, to kind of play into that Seattle-Buffalo game, how I kind of see that game going. And, of course, Vikings DST. Again, we're using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces of this game. Fully expecting a lot of points from two defenses that aren't very good. Bills defense, I think, is a little bit overrated. People kind of think it's a great defense. It's really not, especially on the ground. On the Seattle side, if Chris Carson does not play, DJ Dallas might be my favorite play of this game. So this is going to be a game I'm definitely going to focus on. This is a great example of a stack that I would use. And last but not least, probably my favorite game stack of the week is going to be this Houston Texans game. The problem with this stack that I have here, even though it is my favorite, I don't have anything on the other side. I don't have any Jacksonville pieces that I particularly like, and I think you can do it. I think it's okay. I mean, if you looked at my Jets players that I used, there wasn't really any player that kind of left off the board. Yes, the process is very important. You kind of want that back and forth pinball machine thing going on there. But, yeah, so I went with Deshaun Watson, Will Fuller, Brandon Cooks. I think those three are going to be the best offensive players of the week. Dalvin Cook and DJ Dallas. Dalvin being my favorite running back of the week. Jerry Jeudy, my favorite receiver of the week. Travis Kelce, my favorite tight end of the week. And then Jalen Guyton, my dart throw at 3,100. Again, just a guy that's kind of getting downfield looks, cheap, good offense, good matchup. So that's kind of why I filled out that lineup. So again, I didn't use any Jacksonville people, but I did use three guys from the same game, being Deshaun, Fuller, and Cooks, and that's kind of a good example of how I construct my lineups each and every week. I hope that helped a lot, folks. Really would be awesome to have another week. Send those screenshots too, and folks, to me too. You can either private message me, post them on Facebook. Love to see how everyone out there is doing. Was really great to see all the positive feedback I got for our big cash as well. So we'll love to get another one. Love to get another one on the resume and on the book. So that's going to wrap it up for me, folks. I hope you enjoyed the show. It's any updates this morning, excuse me, not this morning, but Sunday morning, I will absolutely let you know if there's any last minute inactives and any other cheap plays that I really like. Stay on top of that Chris Carson injury. That DJ Dallas play is going to be pretty darn important. And I will let you know any other injuries. Until then, folks, my name's the Big AC. Look for me on DraftKings, 401 Crew 1 on DraftKings, The Fantasy Life with AC on YouTube and on Facebook, and at Trivia with AC on Twitter. Any questions at all about daily, season-long fantasy, please send them my way. Post it on the Fantasy Life with AC page on Facebook or at Trivia with AC on Twitter. Guys and gals, I more than appreciate your positive feedback each and every week, and I will see you out there on the Fantasy Gridiron. Have a great day, folks. Good luck on Sunday. Have a good one.